This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
This episode is brought to you by Google Health. Stop chasing someone else's definition of health. What matters is what's healthy for you. Google Health offers a new kind of coach built with Gemini for effortless tracking, sleep insights, and holistic coaching tailored to you. Visit googlestore.com to learn more and start a new relationship with your health. Requires Google account, Google Health app, internet, and Google Health Premium subscription. Features subject to change. Availability and results vary. Not intended for medical purposes. Works independently of Gemini apps. Check responses for accuracy.
In the squadron, they called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, here we are again. All right, some good, a lot bad from the Supreme Court. John Roberts, huh? What is in that guy's closet, huh? Now, I don't know. The thing about him is, he cares more about himself and the institution of the Supreme Court. Meaning, like, when they look back in history, 100 years from now, they're going to find out which justice allowed the court to be packed, right? There's a real possibility that they'll pack the Supreme Court. What does that mean? This is something that Democrats have been wanting to do for a half century. More than 100 years, they've been looking to pack the Supreme Court, go from 9 justices to 19, dilute the impact of anybody on that court, and make sure it goes one way, not the other. Imagine if Congress were 9 people, right? I mean, it's interesting, and they want to plus it up. I mean, if we're 9 people in Congress, each member would be a lot more important. Now there are 435. Any one member ain't that important, although it's changing now because the majority is so slim. So he doesn't want to be the guy who came up with decisions that so offended the left wing that the Democrats went crazy and voted to expand the Supreme Court, because that would make each individual justice less powerful, therefore less prestigious, less perks, less a lot of things. And he doesn't want to go down in history as that guy, even though it would probably take place after he's gone, right? I think that's what's driving him, and that's kind of sad. Also, he's got Trump derangement syndrome. Amy Coney Barrett seems to have Trump derangement syndrome. Brett Kavanaugh is just traumatized, and I don't blame that guy after what he went through. And they tried to kill him, and he has to think on a day-to-day basis how I rule. Forget lifetime appointment. He wants to live until he's 90. I want him to live until he's 90. The left wants to kill him. They don't want him to see 60. Is he even 60 years old yet? If he is, just barely. He has to live in fear. The Biden administration allowed a marauding mom right in front of his house, which is totally against the law. Birthright citizenship, we didn't get that one. So now if you're born in America, no matter under what circumstances, your parents could be here for 2 weeks to conduct a terrorist operation, and they want to blow it up, and all of a sudden Junior comes out early or whatever, born in the hospital in America. That kid is an American citizen. And it's kind of absurd. They say, well, the 14th Amendment says that. Well, the 14th Amendment, you do have to go back to the framers' intent, right? And you can figure that out in the papers and everything else. And the people, actually, it wasn't the founding fathers. It was the framers of that amendment. It was what was discussed at the time of the 14th Amendment, which I think was right around the Civil War. Not to go too academic, but if you look it up, and you can look it up, and this Constitution ain't that complicated. It was all about, hey, we're done with the Civil War. Quite frankly, we have all these slaves walking around. They should be American citizens. We're not going to send them back to Africa or the Caribbean or wherever they came from. No, they deserve to be American citizens, and so do their children. That's what the 14th Amendment's all about. It's not about this, like, I guess back then it seemed totally bizarre and unthinkable, but it's happening. They never understood that a guy like Joe Biden would surrender the borders. They knew, however, they did know the danger of foreign influence in America. It's one of the reasons why, to be extra sure, to be extra positive that you have a loyal president, it's a job where you have to be born in America. You can't be born outside America and be president. That's in the Constitution. Inviolate, they say. You can't go back on that. I think Alito, who, no NPR, he's not retiring. NPR had a report that he's retiring. They usually announce the retirements right around now. It's not true. He's not retiring, but that's somehow that made it into the news. Justice Alito, he's the one who wrote the Roe decision. They really hate this guy. He writes, in my judgment, the court has made a mistake that will seriously affect the country's future. Suppose that a person's only connection to this country is that he was born here to a mother who was present just long enough to give birth and then quickly return to her native country. Suppose that country is a strategic adversary or enemy of the United States. Suppose the child never visited the United States while growing up and was inculcated with hatred of this country. According to this court, that person is a citizen of the United States. He can enter and leave the country as he pleases. He can travel the world on an American passport. Even if he plots to harm this country, he cannot be deprived of his status as a citizen, at least under current precedent. Samuel Justice Alito in his dissent. I don't see how you can argue with that. Now, they do argue with it, and they try to confuse people. They try to make the simple seem complicated. And they complicate the simple. Both work. There is a cut and dried, it's right there. So I'm really surprised. I'm also still hung up on the mail-in voting, that we're going to get voting results. You don't have election day. You've got election season. It starts ludicrously early, and now it goes constitutionally 5 days past election day. That's also contrary to the Constitution. If you're a constitutionalist, being on the Supreme Court probably ain't that hard. The document is not, it's not like that big. You can master it, and you can just go pointing to it. I've been doing this with the lawyers. It drives them crazy. And they're going to throw all this stuff at you, and they'll try to complicate the issue. You bring up the Constitution. You'd be surprised how lawyers don't know the Constitution. They don't know Article 1 from Article 3. Granted, neither did I until not too long ago. It's a beautiful document, and we should be celebrating that. Oh, by the way, it's not 250 years old. It's about 236 years old. And it was adopted not in 1776. It came later. And what made this country truly great? Yeah, we bolted from Britain, but then we came up with our own cool new set of laws that just totally worked. Hey, real quick on the side here. The socialists are all in favor of sex work, right? Sex work. Prostitution is sex work. There are certain things that people do in life, and they say it's the oldest profession, and I think it should still be illegal. I think, like, adultery should be illegal. No, you know what I mean? There are certain things that, even if people do them, I don't think they should be sanctioned. I think that there should be a law against it. This prostitution stuff harms everybody. The prostitutes, the Johns, right? It's not good. And now it looks like the bathhouses are coming back. Anybody remember hearing about the bathhouses? When I heard about these things, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what goes down in these things? Well, back when we had the AIDS crisis, and I guess we don't have that because of AZT or HZT, we got treatment for AIDS. Not a cure, but treatment. And thankfully, people can live long and productive lives, right? Even with AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome. And I applaud that. I think that's fantastic. But I don't think there should be any bathhouses in New York City for straight or gay people. That's something we don't want to condone. If you want to take a bath with your friends, go to your house or rent a hotel. You can even request a ginormous bath. We've all seen them on TV. We used to see them all the time, that cheesy hotel out in the mountains. Do that. We can't have city-sanctioned facilities. Ed Koch said no bathhouses. No more bathhouses. Too many people are dying of AIDS. Cut 5, please, if you don't mind. Cut 5 from WNBC News in 1985.
In New York, where as many as 400,000 people are infected with the AIDS virus, the government is taking a close look at city bathhouses.
Bathhouses have not taken appropriate measures to stop it. Then you go into court and you get a court order that says this bathhouse has failed to carry out the regulations, and then you close it down.
What do you think of that? Kind of makes sense. Ed Koch. Now, they say he was gay. I don't know if they know that. The New York Times did something brutal. They outed him posthumously. People wondered, but back then I think it mattered more than today. Who cares? Who cares? And I think, my gut tells me he was celibate, and that's, he was a bachelor, never got married. It's his business. But that right there kind of annoyed the gay community because, oh, you're gay and you're not endorsing some of the negative components of the gay lifestyle. That doesn't apply to every gay person, but back then it was kind of rampant. Now, here's the mayor, and you heard about the mayor of Minneapolis just saying that the bathhouses are back. They're back. Have a good time, but please practice safe sex. Cut 4.
This is the bathhouse ordinance. Everybody ready?
Woo! Well, be careful. Be careful. It's something that Mamdani is big on. Sex work is work, and it should be unionized, and it should be all these things. No. It should be illegal. You can do that in Amsterdam. Speaking of Amsterdam or Europe in general, I have seen the movie I haven't seen the whole thing, Citizen Vigilante. You can watch it on X for free, and that's where I'm watching it. It is one hell of a movie. Hey, Carlos, do me a favor. Get the trailer for Citizen Vigilante. So it's basically this international man of mystery played by Armie Hammer, who goes around like avenging wrongdoing. He's like Superman, but instead of a cape, he wears a dark overcoat. He's armed to the teeth. He's got 1,000,000 guns. It's almost like Death Wish with Charles Bronson, but like the European version. Updated. He goes after ISIS. He goes after those who participate in gang rapes, which apparently is like a big thing in the Muslim world, parts of the Muslim world. Obviously not all Muslims, but strangely enough, it seems to be condoned in certain, families or tribes or whatever they got going. Seems, I'd like to know more about that. That sounds like something that's not good, right? What else happens in this movie so far? So I can't really make out how this guy has all this power and know-how. I guess we're going to find out. But it's very entertaining. And the other thing about it is Armie Hammer is the international man of mystery. You remember Armie Hammer? He was like on the verge of becoming possibly the biggest movie star in the world. And then he got canceled. Now, why did he get canceled? Well, get this. Apparently he was a kinky guy and he was into cannibalism. Now, he's not really into cannibalism. I mean, he's not truly eating people. But it was something that he kind of enjoyed talking about. And, with other adults who might be into the same thing. No one's eating anybody. I remember this happened to a cop like 15 years ago. Anybody remember that guy? Velveto, whatever his name was? He was fantasizing about eating people. Now, all right, not my thing. But as long as that's like just in your head and you're not going to like actually eat somebody, think about whatever you want. I don't care. Armie Hammer. And so they had text messages and he's going to eat this person and I'm going to have you for dinner. And I don't know. I remember it, and it was right in the middle of Me Too, and a lot of guys were going down. And I'm like, I don't know if he deserves to go down for that. I said that out loud. How dare you say that? Are you a cannibal? Are you into that stuff? Well, no. But, I have my proclivities. I don't think it's anybody else's business. He's not doing anything illegal. Armie Hammer. So I'm glad he's back. Armie Hammer, what else about him? He played the Winklevoss guys in, what was the name of that movie? The FaceTime movie? What the hell was the name of that movie? The Social Network. And he also played Clyde Tolson in the FBI movie with Leonardo DiCaprio as J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover allegedly was involved in a relationship with Clyde Tolson, the number 2 man at the FBI. All right, when we come back, a little bit more on Citizen Vigilante. I want to make it the number 1 movie of the summer. All right, and why not? It's free. Happy 4th of July week. Be right back.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Beware anybody who says that the Trump family is grifting or that they are, this unprecedented corruption, that they're doing all these deals in the Middle East and Jared Kushner. What is going on? You see, they're missing something very vital, and it's easy to miss because it wasn't reported under the Biden administration when Hunter, the degenerate drug addict, all right, and I understand he's clean and sober now, and that's wonderful, and he's enjoying himself on Twitter, and very nice, but, he was doing stuff for his father going all the way back to the vice presidency and in between the vice presidency and the presidency. Hey, I don't care how a man makes his living, all right, knock yourself out, but the 10% for the big guy, that was the problem, one of the problems, that Hunter, we believe, and there is massive evidence that shows that the money was going to Hunter so it could get to Joe Biden, that the money was going to his brothers so the money could ultimately get to Joe Biden. We have checks. We have clear evidence that deals negotiated by Frank Biden himself, the healthcare situation in Ohio. He got, $40,000 one day, and he wrote his brother a check the very next day. Oh, that's a loan repayment. You can write anything you want on a check. Okay, loan repayment. You fell for that? The other thing, all right, so it's money getting to Joe. And that these creeps like Frank Biden, James Biden, and Hunter, they had no skill. They had no know-how. That was part of it. They always wanted to do a deal, but they had no service. They had no expertise. Now, you may not like the Trumps or whatever. I mean, that's fine, but these people are world-class experts. They're international businessmen, and they have been. Donald Trump, what year did Donald Trump get out of college? Well, he was buying and selling houses while he was in college in the 60s. I think he graduated college in 68. And then you have Jared Kushner, who was flipping buildings in college. Before he was 30 years old, he bought $1 billion building on 6th Avenue. Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric were learning by their father's side decades before politics. It's a world of difference. One is corrupt, Biden, and one is pure, Trump.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, what a treat and a privilege it is for us here to be able to talk to the world's greatest lawyer, Professor Alan Dershowitz from the Harvard Law School, a living legend, so brave, so interesting. Professor Dershowitz, welcome back, and really great to have you. What do you think of the big things coming out of the Supreme Court today? I'd like to start with the birthright citizenship. It remains in effect. Trump didn't want it. I didn't want it. How do you feel about this?
We can overrule it. All we have to do is get Congress to hold hearings about the abuses that are occurring of birthright citizenship, and then issue legislation saying that people who just come through the country, people who are sent here by China, people who have no allegiance to the country, they are not, quote, subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. Now, the Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that, but they said that in dictum. Dictum means it's not binding because that issue wasn't before them. All that was before them was an executive order, not legislation. So I think the ball is now in the hands of Congress, and I'm hoping the president asks me or somebody else to draft legislation for him that would be constitutional and would limit the effect of birthright citizenship. Wouldn't eliminate it, but it would limit it. Let's start out with one assumption. I think everybody agrees birthright citizenship is the stupidest thing in the Constitution. It is the dumbest thing. The idea that just because your parents were passing through and you were born here and you spent 3 days in the country, that you're a citizen. You have no tax obligations. You can't serve in the army. You can't commit treason. You don't have any of the obligations of citizenship, but you get the benefits of citizenship. That's really dumb, dumb, dumb. But the text of the Constitution is what it is. So I think Congress can now have a big impact on changing its impact.
All right, I would love that. Hey, real quick, the text of the Constitution is what it is. There's a school of thought that you try to figure out what was in their head, and the head of the lawmakers, the 14th Amendment, when they came up with that. They were talking about slaves, and aren't we supposed to understand what they were thinking, and can we apply that?
That's so interesting because generally liberals on the court say, let's look at the intent, let's look at what the framers had in mind, and it's the conservatives who say, no, it's just the text. It's just the text, and we should look only at the text. Now we're seeing it flipped. Now you're finding the conservatives are saying, hey, wait a minute, they never intended this. They intended only to apply it to freed slaves, and that they're right about that. But they just drafted it badly. It's a little bit like the dumb 22nd Amendment that says that Trump actually can serve a third term. He just can't run for it. Just a drafting mess up. The human beings who wrote the Constitution were busy, and they were human beings, and they made mistakes. And the 14th Amendment is based on a serious mistake. I don't think any of the framers would have intended that the 14th Amendment gives citizenship to a baby born here to Chinese parents who were sent over by the Chinese government in order to get citizenship without any obligation. So I think you're absolutely right. If you look at the intent, then plainly the intent was not to have it so broadly defined. But a lot of justices don't look at the intent. Justice Scalia, for example, would say, well, who knows what people intended. In the end, what they intended is what they put in the words. And so let's look at the words. That's the debate.
So nobody, even Scalia, especially Scalia, but I keep hearing about the Federalist Papers, and there's a lot of stuff in there. And would a guy like him, he would never go to the Federalist Papers to try to figure out what was going on?
He would. That would be one of the factors. But he says you don't look at the legislators, you look at the public. What did the public think when they enacted the 14th Amendment? Or when, for example, you go back to the Federalist Papers, in the origin of the Constitution, black people in southern states were 2/3 of a human being. They couldn't vote, they couldn't do other things, but for purposes of census, they counted as 2/3 of a human being. And then the 14th Amendment said, look, we don't like fractional citizenship. So if you're born in the country, even if you're black and you come from Africa, you're a full citizen. That's what was intended by the 14th Amendment. It was part of the post-Civil War Treaty of Peace, basically. 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were the race amendments. And so they really, in terms of intent, should be limited to that, but they've now applied more broadly in the Supreme Court in dictum, and that's the important point. The issue is not in front of them whether or not the legislature could redefine what it means to be subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. And if they do that now, you may get a justice or two or three to say, well, no, we're not going to deny Congress the power to define who is within the jurisdiction of the United States. So it's a fascinating issue. If I was still teaching criminal law at Harvard, believe me, I'd be teaching this case.
All right, look. A lot of frustration with the court from my friends in the conservative world, the MAGA world, Amy Coney Barrett on some stuff and John Roberts. Isn't there, and there might be some genuine things to be frustrated about, but I feel like Congress is the chief culprit in all of this, especially over the past 20, 30 years. They've gotten really mired in silly stuff, and they don't seem to want to confront the hard stuff. Is there any merit in that?
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of merit in that. I think that we become such a partisan country that if the Democrats want it, the Republicans are against it. The Republicans want it, the Democrats are against it. Bipartisanship is gone. And by the way, part of that is attributable to another Supreme Court decision today, the one that says there's no limits on how much money you can spend, and you can coordinate with political candidates, extending the decision that was decided several years ago in Citizens United. So now you get George Soros, for example. He gets 100,000 votes. Not we get one, but he gets 100,000 because he can spend all the money he wants on radical socialist, anti-American candidates. And believe me, he will. He's already put more money into the midterm elections, I think, than all the other people who have combined. And so it's the Supreme Court now says that money is speech, and so it's all protected by the First Amendment. The ACLU defends that, and that may be good constitutional law. It's certainly bad politics because it gives much, much, much too much power to the very few people who are willing to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on getting their radical candidates elected, and we're going to see more of that.
Well, we got some guys on our side who with deep pockets, and hopefully they're going to be generous. Hey, one other thing, sir. Is it, I listen to these oral arguments sometimes, and in about 20 seconds, I'm lost. I wonder, look, I'm not a lawyer, whatever, but is some of this stuff overcomplicated on purpose?
Very much so. When I argue cases in front of the courts, and I've argued 250 appeals, probably as much as any private lawyer in the history of the country, I speak English. I do not speak legalese. I speak in a way that's understandable to the public. And I give the justices and the judges sentences that they can borrow from me that are, things that people will agree to and understand. So I completely agree to you. There's this strange language called legalese, which is designed by lawyers to be able to charge a lot of money to essentially interpret them.
Wow, that is amazing. And Professor, one other thing, if you don't mind,
Sure.
When you're in front of the court and you're being asked questions, you submit a brief and then they ask questions. Yeah. I often wonder, let's face it, sometimes you're in command of the room. The litigants are the ones answering the questions. The judge is almost reduced to asking questions, and that's important. But I wonder if the judges get frustrated by that. In a weird way, they're observing. They're not the principal in that courtroom.
But in the end, they are, because even if they're quiet, like Justice Thomas was for 20 years, he gets to vote. The litigants don't get to vote. So, the litigants can mouth off. But, when I argue a case, I look at body motions. I look at subtle things that would maybe tell me what the court is deciding, because the job of the lawyer is only to persuade the court. And if you're good at it, you can often predict how the court will come out. We all predicted. I predicted, certainly many others, that the court would come out the way they did on all three of the cases they decided today. They were easily predictable, even though they were 5-4 and 6-3 decisions. If you see the argument, you get a sense of where it's going.
Last question. Ted Cruz, Senator Ted Cruz is he's put out the word, or people are picking it up, that he's running for president no matter what. Whether it's J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, he is going to run. And there's a lot I admire about him. You have described him, I believe, as the smartest student you've ever had. And I want to know, if you don't mind, is that natural ability? Did he study harder than everybody else? What was so special about Ted Cruz when he was a student?
He just had an immediate, quick ability to pick up arguments and to make arguments. He came to Harvard my first day teaching. First day I taught him. He came into class with his right hand raised, and he didn't put it down all semester. He was the perfect student because he challenged everything I did, everything I said. And some people thought that class was jointly taught by Dershowitz and Cruz, because he would raise his hand, he would object, and I would argue with him. I was playing the devil's advocate. He was the actual devil, and it was great fun. It was great fun. So I would love to see him run for president. I'd love to see Marco Rubio run for president. I think the Republicans have a pretty deep bench. who the hell are the Democrats going to nominate? Mamdani? He can't. He was born in Uganda. AOC? I hope they nominate her. She'll get 12 votes. She'll win maybe one state. She'll be worse than Dukakis. But I think the Republicans now have a deep bench. As you know, I am now a Republican. I was a Democrat for 60 years, more than 60 years. But I can't be part of a party that nominates and the kinds of people that they nominated in New York this past week.
No, and the anti-Semitism, it's such a crisis. And
anti-Americanism, too. Scratch an anti-Semite deep enough, you're going to get an anti-American. Because if you're a hater, you're a hater.
I want to play one little soundbite from Chuck Schumer in his book, because Chuck Schumer has been totally MIA on all of this stuff. And it's amazing. He wrote a book about anti-Semitism, came out last year. And
I remember.
In it, he almost confesses that he wouldn't be ready for a moment like this. Listen to this. Cut 16, please. Cut 16.
My staff in the Senate reasoned that engaging in these issues was politically risky, and they advised me against making lengthy public remarks on either anti-Semitism or the situation in the Middle East. I understood where they were coming from, and their assessment was probably correct. There was a great deal of political risk. I also felt uncertain, even inadequate.
There are dozens of quotes like this, and he feels self-conscious about his Judaism. He doesn't feel Jewish enough. All kinds of things that I was shocked. But the book suggests that, well, in the end, I came out, against anti-Semitism, even though I have all these complexities. But now the complexities have won out, and he's keeping his mouth shut in this critical time. Absolutely right.
He calls himself, his name is Schumer, so he calls himself, when he goes to Jewish areas, he calls himself Shomer Yisrael, the guardian of Israel, a takeoff on his name, Schumer. But he has been absolutely quiet. He's been quiet when the Democrats nominate a Nazi in Maine, when they nominate people who believe that Hamas was right on October 7th in New York. He's nowhere to be seen. He's missing in action. And I think he's a has-been. I've known him since he was a student at Harvard Law School. He's always put his finger up to the wind. He's never been a man of courage. And he always goes with the flow. And now the flow is going against him, and probably he'll be replaced as majority leader if the Democrats get control, or as minority leader if they maintain their minority status. I think he's done.
Yeah, one way or the other, and it's too bad. Stick to your principles, but I don't think he has any. Professor Alan Dershowitz, you are amazing. Such a privilege to talk to you. We thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet, sir. Wow. Great guy. 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222. We shall return.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Man, it's going to get really hot. We're going to break 100 degrees coming up. Not today, but it's going to happen, it looks like. Hello. What do you guys think of anything? Shall we try Paul in Pennsylvania? Yes, sir.
Hi, Greg Kelly. Thank you for taking my call. I enjoy your show. Anyway, my reason for, and by the way, thank you for your service. I also served I was Air Force pilot here in Navy, I guess. In any event, my reason for the call is, as much as I love Ted Cruz, he was born in Canada to a Canadian mother and a Cuban father, and I'm not sure how, you say that Mamdani can't become president, but how is it that Ted Cruz can if he wasn't he was a naturalized citizen?
Yeah, well, his parents were citizens. He may have been born in Canada, but his parents were citizens when he was born. Does that make sense?
Well, no. His mother was Canadian and his father was Cuban.
No, I mean of origin. Of origin. They became citizens. It's like you understand that. I mean, he was a citizen when he was born, even though he was born in Canada. Does that make sense? Wait, what are you laughing at me for? His parents were citizens.
Because, no, they were not. His mother was both U.S. and Canadian. She was a Canadian citizen, and he was born in Canada.
Well, you just said U.S. citizen.
Not a U.S. citizen.
You just said U.S. citizen, and I think the old man was a citizen as well. I'll look into it, but there's never really been much of a question. You'll remember there was briefly a question about John McCain, because you know where he was born, right? Do you know where John McCain was born?
In Panama. Yeah.
Yeah. So that came up then, but it didn't really matter where he was born because his parents were citizens. So let me check it out. I want to know more. You may be onto something, but I think it's been resolved. Dennis, hello.
Greg, this morning on Sid's show, he reported that Hegseth fired General Donahue, and Sid had his friend Tacopina on. He tore him from stem to stern for 15 minutes.
Who tore who to pieces?
Joe Tacopina, Sid's lawyer, tore Hegseth from stem to stern over the firing of General Donahue, as though this guy were the second coming of Jesus. Do you know anything about this General Donahue?
I know that people like him. I know that the deputy, the Army secretary was incensed. There are a lot of people in Washington. I've never met the guy. A lot of people in Washington did not like that termination. Look, I got my differences with Hegseth big time. However, I do think it is his call and prerogative to fire generals, and a lot of generals needed to go. I didn't like what he did with the Secretary of the Navy. Now, Tacopina, he's like an ambassador for the Army. Did he talk about that? He's got like an appointment with the Army. So there is in the Beltway. I don't particularly, how these generals. I mean, it's all in the book. You know what I mean? A lot of it is like personality and politics. But yeah, he's not the only one that's upset with Hegseth for Donahue. But certainly I have my misgivings about Hegseth. But generally speaking, the terminations with the generals, I have no problem with. And I'll also throw this out. I really liked what Hegseth did with the speech in Quantico, where he talked about we got to get away from the take no risks mentality. So I know Tack. I like Tack a lot, and he does have unique insight. So I'm not quarreling with him, but I just don't know enough about this Donahue guy. I've heard the same thing. Oh my God, Donahue, he's amazing. I mean, like, how amazing can the guy be? That's kind of how I, ease up already. But anyway, thank you, sir. I'm going to check that out. Yes, Chris, how are you?
Humming. Sorry, I had to do that. For the honeymooners.
Hey, Kinkori Apple. What's going on?
Actually, I witnessed the Flight 800 takedown. I lived in Connecticut at the time on the shoreline, and I just happened to be sitting there with my brother and his girlfriend, and I happened to point out across the Sound to Long Island, where they shoot off fireworks, randomly all through the summer. I just happened to say, look, they're shooting one off. And we all saw it going up, and then an explosion, which wasn't like any kind of fireworks. It was more like a random, explosion. But then I saw two descending streaks coming down, and they disappeared. But I was, we called the FBI. I was interviewed. I actually am an artist. I drew a picture of the whole thing.
I love it. You gave what you knew. You told everybody everything. Thank you, sir. Hey, the Ted Cruz thing, yeah, his mom was a citizen, and that's the key part.
Thanks for listening to The Greg Kelly Show. You can hear The Greg Kelly Show weekdays at 12:15 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?